The third day of the trip, following the route of 4 European capitals, was beginning. After visiting Riga and Tallinn, we sailed towards the coast of Sweden. From the deck of our ferry Victoria, I marveled at the stunning view of the hundreds of rocky islets that form the distinctive scary coast. This spectacle continued for at least 4 hours as we approached the Swedish capital. With a population of 1 million, Stockholm is the largest city in Sweden. Part of its area is on the mainland and the rest on 14 islands, hence it is often called the Venice of the North. After disembarking, we took our seats in our coach. Passing through numerous junctions and tunnels, we were approaching what is the most interesting and representative in Stockholm. We started on the Kungsholmen island. On its extreme eastern tip, the City Hall is located. The City Hall hosts the annual Nobel Banquet in the Blue Hall. It takes place at the beginning of December with participation of Nobel Prize winners and members of the Swedish royal family. Next to the town hall building, we could see the symbolic tomb of Birger Jarl, who is considered the founder of Stockholm and the most eminent statesman of medieval Sweden. From the park by the town hall, looking across the water, there was a view of the city center. We decided to move there with our bus. We were going to discover the charms of Stockholm's Gamla stan, or Old Town. It is in Gamla stan that the royal palace is located, and this is where we started, specifically with the royal guard ceremony. Well, maybe with waiting for it. We were not alone, which for me personally was reassuring, because if others were waiting, then there must have been something to wait for. Finally, it began, and those standing in front could see something. Breaking the chronology of the story a bit, I admit that during my free time I decided to return to the palace. I wanted to have another look at the gods. This time it was perhaps less parade-like, but more peaceful and without crowds. After watching the representative changing of the guard, we continued our walk. Among other places, we took a look at the Finnish church. In the courtyard next to the church, I could see the smallest statue in Stockholm. In English, it's called Little Boy Who Looks at the Moon. It is one of the smallest statues I have ever seen. After a few moments, we reached the center of the Old Town, the main square called Stortorget. In the former Stock Exchange building, the Nobel Prize Museum is located nowadays. The square, which has witnessed many historical events, today impresses with its colorful architecture and holiday atmosphere. As Stockholm's Old Town is best explored on foot, we continued slowly along its charming streets until we came to the narrowest of them, Martin Trotzig's Grand. At its narrowest point, the distance between the houses is just 90 centimeters. Soon we reached a small square called Iron Square. At the square you can have a cake and coffee at Sandberg's Bakery Cafe. It was founded in 1785 and it's probably the oldest operating patisserie in the capital of Sweden. Our guide Anya decided to give us some free time in the area. I spent it wandering around the nooks and crannies of the old town, trying to soak up its atmosphere and get used to the topography. I was on an internship trip after all. 200 meters away from Iron Square, there is a food kiosk with simple dishes where the main character is herring. There you can, for example, enjoy a herring burger. It costs just 90 Swedish krona. Considering you are in Sweden, this is a very reasonable price. When in Stockholm, it is worth visiting one more place, the Vasa Museum. It is located on the island of Djurgården, about 2.5 kilometers from Gamla Stan. The Vasa Museum is the most visited museum in Sweden. It is entirely dedicated to the 17th century royal ship that sank during its first sailing, just a few minutes after leaving port. After 333 years since the disaster, the wreck was salvaged. Thanks to the great commitment of specialists, today it is possible to admire this 69-meter treasure, which is 95% authentic. The museum is very interesting and absolutely worth a visit. After a sunny afternoon spent in Stockholm, we headed to the port. There, we embarked on the ferry to Helsinki. Fortunately, August days are long, so sailing out of Stockholm, I could once again enjoy the views of a boat, hundreds of skerries and characteristic Swedish houses, most often in the color of fallen red. The tour offered a lot. 4 European capitals with their history, architecture, atmosphere and main attractions. In addition, the beauty of nature, which could be slowly contemplated during the cruise across the Baltic Sea. Finally, the attractions on board, enjoying great dinners and an interesting artistic program with concerts and shows. There was everything, so many pleasant experiences for the mind, soul and body in just 5 days. From Stockholm to Helsinki we had to sail almost 250 nautical miles. We had an evening and night ahead of us on the fantastic Silja Serenade. This ferry has an inner promenade of over 140 meters with cafes, restaurants and shops. There is also a special performance hall where shows and concerts are organized every evening. And it was in such circumstances that we sailed towards our next port, Helsinki, the capital of Finland.